Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Penny Lane Podcast with Jimmy and Luke from Slap the Ask Show. I went on their show a couple of months ago and we had such a good time we thought we'd bring it on over here. So, hope you enjoy the episode. This episode is brought to you by Pennies Going in Raw and Last Bottle Wines.
The stock market is hotter than ever right now, and traders are taking advantage. But what does that mean for the people who still haven't started trading? The market can be a little intimidating at first, but you don't have to be alone in the learning experience. We at the Pennies Going in Raw podcast are here to help you. I'm Dan, and with my co-host Hugh Henney, we make the stock market a fun but informative experience for our listeners. We offer knowledge for all levels of traders, from beginners to those who do it full time. On PGIR, we discuss up-to-date news about the stock market and interview other traders who all started out just like us and made it big. You'll hear from Hugh and other multi-millionaire traders, founders and CEOs of companies, FinTwit superstars, and even professional athletes. Have you ever thought about investing your hard-earned cash but don't know where to start? Do you have money just sitting in your savings account collecting dust? We were all there once too. Listen to Pennies Going in Raw on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Penny.
Hey, Penny.
Welcome to my pod. Thanks for coming over to my house this time.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having us.
Yeah, so this is our second go-round because you guys were nice enough to have me on your show. Still the only podcast I've ever done, so
Really?
thanks for taking a chance on me.
Well, you got to go on Pennies Going on Raw one of these days.
I literally have interviewed both Dan and Hugh, and I'm at the end of every interview, I'm like, I want to come on your podcast, and have yet to really, and they're like, yeah, of course. My interview has not arrived in the mail, so not my interview, invitation.
One of these days, I'm sure it'll come.
We'll have to get your following and our following to start tweeting at them so we can try to make something happen. So,
At Hugh Henney.
Let
Penny come on the podcast.
I'm sure that'll do the trick.
So the main thing we have in common is that we have a podcast about the market in general. I
Right.
get that you guys are doing a little crypto, which, I'm down with, but there's not that many of us who are out here in the grind trying to make audio content about the stock market.
Yeah.
You guys,
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a field that could use more voices. I think that are more of the, I don't want to say of the people, but not from like the Bloombergs or the CNBCs of the world, where they're all the managers or, they're these VC venture capitalists. It's rather just people who are retail investing and trading. I think that our space can benefit from that greatly.
now how old is your show?
So we started in end of April 2021. I think we started right around the same time that you did.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours might have been May even, but
Okay.
yeah. So here we are. We're more than 6 months in. One of you guys has to be good at math. How many months in are we?
I think we're right around
10
8.
months?
10. No, 10.
10.
Yeah, 10
Now,
months.
so essentially, we've had a baby, right? We're at this is the time it would take to have a baby. I know my best friend just had a baby, and I was like trying to line up those months, and I was like, feels like a long pregnancy. I feel like I've been in this game for a long time, and here it's been 9 or 10 months.
Right.
Are you guys
That's
also
crazy.
feeling a little bit of wear and tear 9 months in?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that I would say is that, so when I started trading, Jimmy started trading much sooner than I did, but when I started trading in like November 2021, the market was really hot.
Yeah.
And penny stocks were doing like incredibly well. February, it was ridiculous. Like when I look at my tax returns from this year, I'm like, all the money I made was in like 2 months, basically.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, let's start a podcast. We talk about this every day. We enjoy it. So in April, Jimmy and I were like, let's do this. Let's start a podcast. So we started the podcast. Market was a little volatile, but the summer was decent, and then I just feel like it's been dragging on. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like our viewership's down. We're kind of getting inconsistent with our videos. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it definitely has gotten harder.
Yeah.
I assume you probably feel the same way.
Mm-hmm. And I was telling Jim, maybe both of you guys, that we've just had not as many listeners as we had in the beginning. And nothing that I've done has changed. And like, if anything, I feel like we've improved on the
Right.
podcast. So I've been really wondering. We started a YouTube channel, so I'm trying to count the views that we get on YouTube and add it to our episodes and see. And it hasn't been a huge dip, but if it's been enough of a dip that I've noticed. And I'm mentally exhausted from the market. By 4:00 every day, I'm like, peace out. Like, I'm done. And then, we'll have a podcast or whatever. But I can understand the market is just like beating people up. So I can understand not wanting maybe to listen to anything about the market. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the hard thing is when you become really good at something when the market's good. Like, for example, like Jimmy and I, like, we got pretty good at like making money in penny stocks. And then the market became bad, penny stocks weren't good. So we're like, okay, let's pivot, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's go into NFTs, let's go into options. And then you realize I don't have any experience in NFTs or options. So all these other people that are good at this are making money because that's what they're good at.
Yeah.
But we're not good at it. So now we're learning it. And I feel like what Hugh Henney says? He says you should do a year of trading while you're working until you do it full time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that experience just isn't there for NFTs or options. And I just feel like you're trying to make those same returns from penny stocks. It's just not going to happen. So
Yeah.
I've pulled it back a lot. I don't know about Jimmy, but
Well, I mean, I agree with that sentiment, but I think when it comes back to like doing the podcast and things like that, I think what really motivates me now is not necessarily looking for views, but it's like actual intrinsic motivation. Like, we just had a interview last week with this guy who's the chief investment officer of this company called DeFiato. They're like a yield farming crypto company. And I feel like I learned so much. And like, it was like a very cool experience talking to this guy. He lives in Singapore. Like, he is building this, I think, a fantastic company that could be utilized by a lot of people in the world in the coming years. So like, that's something like I personally enjoyed. And I think like having the personal enjoyment out of doing the podcast makes it easier. And, despite, view counts dropping and things like that, that can be a little bit of a like defeating. But I feel like if there is still this personal gain that you feel like you're getting from it, then it's worth it. That's how I'm just rationalizing it in my head.
Totally.
Yeah. I guess a question for you, Penny, is do you feel like
I love this.
Throwing it around.
I love it.
we're both still in the interviewing mode, but do you feel like maybe the reason why you're feeling burnt out is because the people that you're interviewing are all doing the same thing and it's just becoming repetitive? Or do you still feel that interest in trading?
Love trading.
Okay.
Freaking just absolutely love it. And I never feel like the interviews are repetitive. I have pivoted a little bit more to like just sort of shooting the shit with people, and then also like learning more about their lives and mentality, because you can only talk about the EMAs so much, you know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, I have pivoted a little bit in that way. And that's also what I'm good at, is human stuff. Like, if you get real into like theta decay, I can't hang. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean,
More so that's so important for trading, though, right? That's the name of the game.
some of the technical interviews we've done, I'm literally falling asleep doing this interview, and then it's our most viewed video. So it's like,
yeah, people love.
I never know what the people want. But then we did NFT interviews, and no one watched it because our audience they're not into NFTs. You know what I mean?
Yep,
They're traditional stock traders. So I think it's kind of like what Jimmy said. I think if we just do more of what we enjoy, I think there'll be a core group of people that enjoy it, and at least we'll have more fun doing it. So
Yep.
that's our strategy.
So, Jimmy, is it okay? We can cut it out if it's not okay, but I have some questions about DoorDash.
Yeah, go ahead, lay them on me.
All right, so you've been doing some door dashing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that really seems like an ideal job for me. Except,
I would say so.
I mean, listen, I love driving. It's one of my number one loves in life. Absolutely adore it. Love to get like a good album going, front to back, top to bottom. Love that. Or throw on a pod, or just sit in silence. Get on the phone with someone. Really get into it. These are things that are fantastic. However, finding parking to pick up the food and then finding parking to deliver the food would make me not do it. Like, I would find that very frustrating. Are you able to throw on the hazards and just run in, or is there a lot of circling the block? And
so I do it now in the suburbs mainly, and I have no issue finding parking at all.
Okay.
When I was doing it in the city of Philadelphia, before I moved out to the suburbs of Philadelphia doing it, I've gotten like 2 or 3 parking tickets, which suck. They're like, oh, well, this sucks. I just wasted 4 hours for nothing because I have to pay for a ticket. Having said that, putting on hazards usually works fine for me. I actually did door dashing when I was living in Atlanta. And Atlanta is like the best market to stay in the country for doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's big, but there's a lot of miles you have to drive.
Yeah.
So the payouts are bigger.
Yeah.
And I only really had issues parking in like Midtown Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
Like, I feel like if you're out like in Buckhead or like the suburbs, like Decatur or whatever, it's not too big of an issue generally. But yeah, Penny, I always tell Luke this. I'm like, we'll finish working back when I was working, and I'd just be like, all right, well, like, I just have to do something. And I'm like, I really like driving. I listen to podcasts. I feel like I learned so much when I listen to podcasts. I'm like one for Bill, who calls me. I talk to him probably 3 hours a day.
Yep.
Just because I'm driving, I feel no need to hang up on him since I'm literally just driving. I really do like the solitude and just the immersion in whatever you're listening to.
Totally.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I did have an issue though earlier in January where I was driving and I actually got pulled over for a speeding ticket. And the great state of New York, the lovely people that work at our courts, were threatening to suspend my license due to the amount of traffic violations I've received. But luckily, I beat the case. And I am still able to drive, but I have to be a lot more cautious now. So I suggest if you do DoorDash, be very wary because you're driving a lot of miles, and the cops will be looking for you.
So unfortunately, DoorDash is out of the question for me because I got these kids, right? I can't be gone. But I've fantasized a lot in my life about being like a long haul trucker driver. Like, I could really put back some miles, and I will often choose to drive instead of flying just to get out on that open road. I love it.
Oh, Penny, you're speaking my language right now. I actually might become a trucker, honestly, or just drive box trucks.
You know, they
Philly,
make
New York,
$100,000 plus a year.
Yeah.
Year.
Oh yeah. It's only going up now. Especially with these supply chain issues.
Give me a truck.
The only thing I can think of, though, is if you drive 12 hours across the country, you're not with your family for 5 days, I feel like that would get a little exhausting after a while. I feel
really
it sounds, maybe it's for me. I'm not big into driving. I know you guys seem to love driving.
Yeah, I will.
I would be bored out of my mind driving for 12 hours.
I'll comment on that. So my last company was a moving company. I worked with a lot of contracted drivers who owned their own 26-foot truck and drive. And all of them basically said yeah, they end up getting divorced after a couple of years because their wives just can't handle them being away from home for that long. And I guess I get it. It makes sense to me. So I guess growing up, my dad's actually an airline pilot. So when he works, he's gone for 3 or 4 days. So I guess in my house, it's much more normal to have your parent gone for half the week.
Well,
and then
maybe that would help the relationship because they don't get sick of each other. They're gone for 3 or 4 days. So
Jimmy,
maybe that's the formula.
That's
Jimmy.
true too.
Jimmy, who'd your dad work for?
Yeah, honestly, American Airlines.
Do you non-rev?
I do sometimes. if it's available. I mean, if I go down to Philly from New York, I more often than not fly there, and it's like, a 2.5 hour drive, but I live right by an airport. It flights like 30 minutes. And it's free.
My husband works for Delta,
deal.
So we're big on that non-rev life, and I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it.
It depends on the route, I feel like. If the route is too desirable, it's shitty. And if you're not going solo. Like for me, I'm going solo. I get promoted to first class more often than not.
And you probably have that status or whatever. Like the longer you work at Delta, the more status or whatever you have. We're in 7 years now, so we're at the bottom of the food chain, really.
Yeah, I think my dad's been there for like 22 years now or something. So,
I hate it.
Decent status.
All my friends are like, "Oh, you fly for free? Like, what else could you want?" And I'm like, "Not to sit by the bathroom. For my entire family to be able to fly somewhere together. Or, we've got 2 kids, so we'll get on the flight and me and Jimmy, my husband, will be on, it'll be 4 different seats. And then we're on there like, "Oh, pardon me, do you mind moving so that like my child can sit?" And I'm like I feel like the biggest asshole. Anyway, I hate non-revving. I hate it. Before that, Jimmy, my husband, worked at the Four Seasons. And we just got to stay there for free whenever we want. And it was badass. So.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Yeah. Four Seasons is definitely a nice hotel.
Yeah. It was badass.
That's an awesome hotel.
Yeah, non-revving, though. Ooh.
I feel like half the people I've met from Atlanta are affiliated with Delta in some capacity. It really is crazy. It's such a hub there for Delta.
Yep. So you guys have pivoted some. You're in the NFT crypto space. How much of your personal portfolios is weighted in crypto / NFTs now? And why haven't you bought mine?
Well, Penny, that's a good question.
Rude. Do you have some Tezos? Because I can tell you where to park them.
It's funny. The guest that we had about NFTs on our show is speaking to the Tezos NFTs.
Yep.
So I mean, I should buy one of your Tezos NFTs.
Have you seen it? They're so cute.
Penny,
they're very unique looking. They're very unique.
Remind me, your NFT. Penny, your NFTs were all of your artwork, right?
I drew them by hand, or I painted / drew them.
Okay.
Very
and then the actual artwork you were selling. I remember I commented on one of those on Twitter.
I do sell. I don't sell the
you
NFTs.
NFT your artwork, or you create NFTs?
Create NFTs.
Separately. Okay.
Saying something is very unique looking, Jimmy, it's not
Let me
not 100% a compliment.
No, yeah, I guess it might have come out wrong. So let me revert back. First, to answer your question, I'd say about 10% of my portfolio is in crypto. I actually don't own any NFTs because I think they're very scammy, personally. I think it's all going to go to pop and explode or implode, I should say. And when I say your NFTs are unique looking, I feel like the ones right now that derive a lot of value are like the profile picture NFTs.
Yeah, I get that.
Whereas, I feel like if they're not a profile picture, they're kind of like, they're just not as visible because people want the NFT to put on their Twitter profile so they have a little hexagon and look nice and
totally. Cool. I get that. But, I'm a painter, as we just discussed, and I was like, if I'm this close to the crypto market, which I'm not really that close, I'm trading, but if I'm this close to the crypto space and I'm an artist and I don't make NFTs, and then in 30 years, I'm like, oh, I could have, and I didn't. Aren't I going to just be kicking myself? And it takes, the barrier to entry is essentially free. It took a lot of hours to create the NFTs, but then I just had to pay I had to pay Tezos for the gas to mint the NFTs. And so I'm in, $50 maybe. I don't know. I don't know how much I don't know. But
I agree. It's, I guess, as an artist, it's not really a high capital investment to create NFTs, so you'd be probably silly not to at least explore it. I think from someone who's trying to put a valuation on the NFT, though, is it's like kind of two things. One, I guess the art actually has to be like something that people want. And right now, like the Bored Apes, it's not just the fact that it's an ape, it's like a community, it's a status symbol to have the Bored Ape. You have access to celebrities and other people that own the Bored Ape that normal people otherwise would not have. So I guess they're willing to shell out hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to gain this access and trade it and flip it. So that is, I think, currently how the NFT market is valued. I see it, though, like really just going down as time goes on, especially in 2022, simply because of the fact that there's so many rug pulls going on. They have all these anonymous NFT creators. There's one recently last week, we were talking about it on Two Girls One Trade, actually, where there's basically a rug pull. The creators just like pieced out. They took the Ethereum and dipped. You know, they're anonymous, and you know it's Ethereum. You don't know who you're giving it to. You can just go to the Cayman Islands and be off the grid, and no one's going to hear from you ever again.
Interesting.
So I think, I'm a big believer in the NFT technology. I think non-fungible tokens will be a thing. I could see it being like a driver's license or a deed to a house. You hear about people getting their deed stolen. I don't know if it's really happening, but I see commercials for it all the time at the gym where people are like, oh, yeah, I need LifeLock for my home because someone's going to steal my ID. Like, I feel like that would be a good use for it. But in the art world, I think there needs to be some sort of, like, actual tangible benefit, whether it's community, whether it's actual valuable art, or if it's, you know, access to things that you would otherwise not have access to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that Penny has going for her with her NFTs, though, is that she has the community. She's a good artist. I feel like it's a visually appealing, like these different robots, right? But yeah, I think the biggest thing with NFTs is creating a community where you somehow have some sort of ownership in that community, right? Like the Bored Apes, the reason why people buy a Bored Ape is one, to show off, right? And I think two, it was one of the originals, so people really like the fact that they have one of the original NFTs. But also, they also have the Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? So if you own one of these Bored Apes, you can go to these VIP events with other Bored Ape owners, go on this yacht, and meet other people who can afford an NFT that is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in a way, can you put a value on the networking opportunities that you're going to have by meeting these people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more than just the profile NFT pictures.
These people are forward-thinking people. I mean,
right. So Jimmy and I were saying, like, if we do, like, we created some Slap the Ask NFTs just playing around. I have no idea how it works, whatever. But I was like, what if someone buys a Slap the Ask NFT for every episode? Like, every thumbnail you have an NFT, and then they have some sort of ownership in the podcast, right? So I don't know, maybe with your NFTs, Penny, you could have, if someone buys one of your NFTs, then they can do like a 30-minute Zoom call with you, you know, or something like that. I don't know if you've thought about that, but...
Yeah, no, interesting. I've tried selling, or I'm thinking about launching this thing for the podcast where you can pay, like, as a way to monetize it, you can pay like $2 to ask the guest a question that like I would ask, or you could pay $15 and come on and ask the guest your own question, or, you know, if you paid $100, you could co-host or something like that. But tying that to an NFT is pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's probably more work than it's worth at this point. I feel like,
so like Jimmy said, I mean, NFTs are 98% of them are scams.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if the person who creates them is not showing their face, odds are it's a scam, I think.
So what do you guys think? Like, obviously you've watched some part of the Olympics or the Super Bowl or some big, you know, national championship, maybe. Yeah, go Dogs. Maybe the World Series. Go Braves. We're having a banner year.
Go Eagles.
You've seen the crypto.com, the NFTs, does that, you guys think the top is in, or you think we're just getting started? Because like my mom, I don't know if she knows what an NFT is, but now she does not understand the ads on the Super Bowl. Like what's going on with that?
My personal opinion is that yes, I think the top is in. Recently, they had this big like Ethereum conference in Denver, and Vitalis Buterin, who's one of the co-founders of Ethereum, was there and he was talking. And he was saying how like blockchain is like a great technology, and it's going to be accelerating this new development for the internet called Web3. And I said currently within cryptocurrencies, especially NFTs, there's very few real world use cases still. Like buying SafeMoon, how does that help you? What are you doing? You're just basically, it's like a Ponzi scheme. You're buying it only with the goal of selling it to someone at a higher price. There's very little utility, does not represent anything that's actually generating value. Like at least a stock, like an Apple share, represents a multi-trillion-dollar company that produces all the computers that we're talking on, our phones, and pays out dividends. But there's an actual value in owning an Apple stock. Whereas so much of crypto is very scammy and there's no real value to it. So I think the top is in that I think it's going to be harder to shill out these BS cryptos, like a Shiba Inu, a SafeMoon, or, whatever these like random tokens are. But having said that, I think it'll be very similar to the internet bubble, like the early 2000s, where the market will implode, but because of that, there'll be a stronger foundation built, whereas the projects that actually provide use cases will now receive all the funding, will receive all the interest, and then they'll grow and ultimately be even bigger than you can imagine. Sort of like what happened to Amazon. I think during the internet bubble, Amazon went from like $100 a share down to $3. It dropped 97%. Yet now it's a multi-trillion company. So that's my thought for the crypto market.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Jimmy. It's kind of what I think of it as is it's very parallel to the 2000s .com bubble, in that the NFT space, the crypto space, it's completely unregulated for the most part. So it's not like these banks or these stocks where there's all these regulations. So I think you have to go into it inherently knowing that it's all very high risk, right? And with NFTs, I think like Gary Vee said, for example, that 98% of these NFTs are scams. And I mean, his NFT could be a scam. You know what I mean? But I think there's a few ways that you can look at these NFTs and figure out whether or not they are scams. And I think the best ways, like we kind of already talked about, is seeing if there's a face to the project. Like, do you know who these creators are? And then the second thing that I think is very easy to look at is look if the Discord's active, right? Like, are there a bunch of bots in the Discord? Are they buying followers in their Twitter accounts? Are they getting high engagement? Like, is there actually a community or is it a fake community?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're on Twitter and stuff, like you kind of know when it's fake, right?
Yeah.
You can see someone's account and you're like, okay, this is a scam. So I think if you get really good at identifying these projects that are going to last and have actual utility cases, like Jimmy was saying, I think you can make a lot of money. But I think you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because it's kind of like the OTC, Most of these companies are going to zero.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't ride it for a few weeks and make some money. But if you're going to invest for a year or two, I think you really have to look into these. And I'm not an expert by any means in the NFT space, but I think you have to really do your research before putting in a few Ethereum, which is thousands of dollars, into these pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Luke, I think you're totally right there, and I think looking at the community is great. One thing I have a problem with right now is you go on Twitter, and there's actually like a decent amount of like verified Twitter accounts with like 80,000 followers that are basically just NFT pumping bots. I'm like, how did Twitter verify these accounts? So I think that's like a way for people on Twitter to trust the account, right? If it's verified, it's like, oh, I can trust this person.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many in the NFT crypto space that are just scam artists. They're just like bots with all these followers that are verified. I don't know how it could have possibly been verified.
And you know what another problem is so you know how Twitter Blue was introduced, Penny, like a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
So whenever you create an NFT, so you could take like a Bored Ape, for example, right? You could screenshot that, and create your own NFT on OpenSeas, pay the gas fee, whatever it is, $80. It's ridiculous. That's why you should use what you're using is object.com. And you create the NFT, that'll show up as a hexagon on your profile. So it'll be a verified NFT that you created, but it's not a Bored Ape. So you can really fake this stuff and look legit.
Wait. Can I have my verified NFT as my profile picture? Since it's
you
minted?
can do that. Yeah.
And
you got to pay Twitter
you gotta
monthly,
pay
but yeah, you
Twitter
can
Blue
do
like
it.
$3 a month, and then you have to create your NFT,
uh-huh.
and then link your Twitter profile to your crypto wallet,
Uh-huh.
and then you can upload one of your NFTs, and you'll have the hexagon. So
I'm
it's
pretty
basically
sure it has
bragging
to be on
rights. Is all it
OpenSea,
is.
though. I'm not sure if they support Tezo NFTs yet, but definitely Ethereum.
No, it has.
NFTs
I think it
they
has to
do.
be Ethereum. Yeah.
Oh. I like bragging rights. Twitter
Yeah, I
engagement.
mean, it's like anything. Like if you buy a Gucci bag, right?
Yeah.
Someone could look at that and be like, "Oh, that's fake," but they don't really know. Whereas
Right.
if you have an NFT, you know it's real because it's verified through blockchain.
Right.
So you can have this NFT profile picture that says it's number 80 of 10,000 of the Bored Apes, and people are like, "Wow, this guy spent 300 grand on this. He must be legit." So it's just showing off digitally. That's all it is.
Huh.
Irrational exuberance?
When it comes to killer wine at drastically low prices,
30 to 70% off retail and free shipping.
we live for that here at Last Bottle Wines. Whether you went long or short on GameStop, you'll need a glass of something terrifically tasty.
And we've got the goods.
Last Bottle is a daily wine site based in Napa, California,
One wine every day.
at Black Swan event prices.
Usually 30 to 70% off.
Until poof, it's gone. Whether you're a pound the table type
Think ultra crisp, quaffable Sauvignon Blanc,
or a dividend aristocrat,
Burgundy, or Napa Cab.
there simply is no better place to buy wine on the web.
And they always have free shipping.
Last Bottle has a deal just for Penny Lane listeners. Use promo code PENNY
That's PENNY.
to save 10% off your next order with Last Bottle.
The code is good for one order and one order only, and it expires March 11th, 2022.
So head over to lastbottlewines.com today. That's lastbottlewines.com.
Twitter's a weird place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very weird.
I'm big on Instagram for my art. That was my social media prior to getting into stocks, and now I'm on the Twitter, and people it's a weird thing. The engagement's weird. These burner accounts.
Yeah.
I'm just learning about the burner accounts because they're saying mean things to me. And I'm all upset. Like, oh, this person said something mean to me. And then my friends are like, yo, Penny, it's a burner. And I'm like, what's that? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
The way I think, I always say to Jimmy, like, Twitter is the Wild West of social media. People kind of say whatever they want. And most people on Twitter, they don't show their faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of hiding behind this curtain and just shitting on people like us who are trying to add some value to the community. And then all of a sudden we charge some money for a t-shirt and they're like, oh, they just want to get money out of this. And I'm like, bro, we've made $40. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not getting rich off of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you deal with the trolls, Penny? Like,
Well, I've only
I feel
had
like you could get 30 good comments and that one bad comment is the
Yeah.
one that's like, wow.
I've only had a few.
Mhm.
Which I feel so lucky because I encourage so much engagement in my life, and but the worst one, which I've never addressed on the pod, but I will because it really pissed me off, was like, you have no business trading. You need to stop wasting your husband's money and go back and take care of your kids.
Jesus.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
And my gut instinct was to defend myself because the thing that really made me mad is I've never traded with anyone's money except the money that I have worked a job my whole life to make. And my husband and I don't share finances, which I guess is sort of weird to be married, but I was like, I can like prove to you, like, do you want me to prove to you this is my own money? I would never lose that makes me so uncomfortable to lose anybody's money. So I got real protective about that. And then I also thought it was fairly misogynist, I think is the word, right? That like I couldn't be capable of making my own money, and like the only thing I can be good at is taking care of my kids. Then he's implying that I don't take care of my kids, which I'm like trading to make a better life for my children. So I like really spiraled on that, because I was like, that's not true. But somehow it was triggering to me. I think that I feel so much pressure to like make a good name for women traders. And it's important to me to give women traders a voice, but then also be someone who's sort of in the public eye, who's like stable and like, I want to be a good voice for women. And I want to everyone to know that I'm going about it in a real earnest, hardworking kind of way. And, that is important to me. So anyway, I just felt super triggered by that. But the other ones have just been people, and I get the same comment every time, which is, you don't deserve a podcast because you're not a good trader. And that one doesn't trigger me at all, because I'm like, clearly they've never listened to my podcast. Like they're just, that's nothing personal about me. It's like, they just are out there trolling, and like, it's okay. The people that listen to my podcast, I don't force them to listen to it. They listen because they want to, So anyway, those are sort of funny to me. But the one about losing my husband's money, I didn't like it.
Yeah. I feel like you're definitely not the only female trader that's experiencing that. Like, if you look at any of the big female trading accounts, every single tweet that they make, they're getting those comments, right? Like there's that girl from Australia, that was the trader, and she tweeted something, and people were saying all this misogynistic stuff because she explained how trading options was, and it was just completely wrong.
Yes, I did hear about that. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like you're being very transparent with your trading journey, which most people do not have the courage to do, right? Like, there's some statistic that over 90% of day traders lose money.
Right.
And when you get on Twitter, it looks like 95% of traders are making money, right?
Killing it.
So you know that most of them are fake, lying, and they're just trying to promote their accounts to get more followers to then sell products to their listeners. And I feel like you're doing the exact opposite. So you're getting very little hate, but the hate that you are getting is more impactful because you're actually doing it the right way. You know what I mean?
Well,
so
I appreciate you saying that.
No, I mean, I think Luke's 100% right. It is weird how trading is somehow, like, even to this day, perceived as such like a boys' club for whatever reason. And like girls always just have a harder time getting respect or getting treated as though like they're capable traders. Makes no sense to me. But one thing I'll say about that though is I find just like through perusing Twitter that those trolls that like to call out women who are traders are generally on stocks. Whereas I think crypto is much more like open to like women traders or like NFT creators and things like that. Which I find interesting. I just don't know why stock traders that are women on Twitter just get bombarded constantly with negative comments. But at the same time, I hate to say it, but some people just like get off with the idea of just like putting people down. That's really what it is. And like Luke was saying before, it's Twitter. Your account could be like, a bunch of mumbo jumbo. You have a random profile picture. No one's going to trace it back to you. Whereas like Instagram, most accounts are held by actual people, at least in my experience. I think there's less bots. But yeah, definitely a lot of bots on Twitter that just make the space more toxic. But it is, unfortunately, the name of the game. You got to roll the punches or
there's so much about trading being a guys club that I love. Like, I really, really thrive in that kind of environment. And like in high school, all my best friends were guys. Like, I love that about it. But like, also, I don't want to be treated less than.
Right.
Right, the balance you got to strike.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny too because all these people that are commenting hate, more often than not, they're looking at your content, right? Maybe not the guy who made the comment because obviously he's not paying attention closely, but they're still watching you.
Yeah.
So you're increasing your viewership, you're getting likes, so there's always going to be haters.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you guys get any?
I don't know if we get enough engagement to get any hate, but we definitely do sometimes get hate. I mean, there's definitely the stigma of like friends or family watching what you do. For me, it's like a part-time thing.
Yeah.
So you can get kind of like, oh, why are you wasting your money on crypto or trading? And I'm like, well, I mean, this is a small percentage of what I do, and I enjoy it. So why not talk about it?
Yeah.
Right? Like Jimmy and I started this podcast because, well, as you know, we were living together, and every single day we get home from work and we talk about trading. And I was like, why don't we just post this on the internet because we talk about it anyways? So yeah, I think it's something that we enjoy, and I think the hate. I mean, I can't even think of any hate that we've really gotten. I don't know if Jimmy has any.
I don't think we actually have a problem with hate, to be honest. But I will say, like, kind of one thing to talk about Luke, like mentioned the podcast, is I think one thing that I thought like that is really been beneficial for me as personal doing the podcast. So I feel like at least for me, I've got like so much more confidence now, just like talking in public and like voicing my opinions and sharing it with people. Whereas I feel like maybe in the past, without having this platform, I've been maybe a bit more timid with like sharing my thoughts on a particular situation or what I think about, just about anything. But I think the podcast really allowed me to like come out of my shell and just like talk about things and realize, it's one of those things where like you realize like as you go throughout the process and doing this is like there's so many people, there's doers and there's watchers, and you realize like, it's like all the content on there is like on the internet created by like 1% of the people and viewed by the other 99%. It's like, how can you segment yourself into the doer category and just actually doing something? I mean, Luke and I, so we were talking about doing the podcast in April and we were like laying it for a couple of weeks. We're like, all right, we're going to Miami. We went to Miami. All right, when we come back from Miami, we got to do the podcast. And at first I was a little like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sounds good. And we come back, we hit the ground running and, we've done 33 episodes since, and it's been
it's funny when you say that, Jimmy, because when we first started the podcast, it was kind of weird on Twitter to show your face and show who you are because you're scared of getting that pushback and that hate. Because even like Mando Trading, for example, he's one of my friends. Like I know who he is, but he's never showed his face on Twitter because he always says there's so many weirdos. You know what I mean? So he's worried about getting that flack. And even Jimmy didn't have his name or his picture, but eventually he put up his picture and he realized, it's never as intimidating as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Granted, we were lucky enough not to get a ton of hate. But I mean, I'm a strong believer in is if you're nice to people and you genuinely want to help and inform them, they're going to be nice back. And it's the 2% of people that you remember. It's the 2% of negative comments that you remember. But as a whole, I mean, I've loved the Twitter community. I mean, neither of us are making any money from this, so we do it because we enjoy it.
I don't make any money from this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you look at
I pay to have this done. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, look at like Mr. Beast, for example. Like, do you know who he is as a YouTuber? So he has like 50 million subscribers. He's one of the biggest YouTubers. But no one saw that for 4 years he was making videos that got like 20 views. And then eventually he became massive. So it's like, I always say this to Jimmy, the hardest part about becoming successful in anything is just being consistent.
Totally.
Like I always say, like you got to be consistently good, but not occasionally great. You know, because anyone can be
Totally.
really good on those days that you feel really good.
Wow.
But if you wake
So
up
you get that quote on my wall.
every day and you're like, I'm gonna make, you know, $100, $200 trading, rather than like I'm gonna make $2,000 this day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So
Totally. Jimmy, back to what you were saying. We had our annual company meeting this morning, and I hired the guest speaker, who's a very good friend of mine. He's a super famous interior designer. He has 3 television shows. He's a famous guy. And it was my job to introduce him. And people were like, are you nervous? And I was like, no, I think I'm going to wing it. And they're like, what do you mean you're going to wing it? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to get up there and talk. And I got up there and was able to tie together, it's a real estate company, like what I've learned from the podcast, like a nugget that I learned from the podcast, how that applies to all the agents and how that applies to interior design and what I admire about all the things. And then what I specifically admire about the guy. And then I like finished and I was like, whoa. And then like afterwards, people came up to me and they're like, how did you do that? And I was like, I think just at the end of I'm used to talking to people now. And at the end of every episode, I'm making all kind of comparisons from like trading and life and this, like trading is life. And drawing all these things together, I'm just able to like do it now. And I was like, oh, that's a nice skill to have.
right.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you're working out a muscle, and it kind of like to that same effect. Like I'm interviewing for jobs right now, and they're all over Zoom and stuff, and it's just so easy now because it's like I do this every week. It's like a workout. It's just, it's like it's not nearly as stressful as it might have been like a year ago to do these kind of work. It's just a workout, and you it's really a muscle that can be flexed. And I don't know. I feel like as I've gotten older, like kind of gone through life and just seen things, like I kind of like always go back to like this central idea that like I'm big into the idea of like stoicism. I don't know why, that's like my new like personal philosophy. And it's like, you're going to die. You will die. It's inevitable. You actually don't really matter on the grand scheme of things. It's kind of nihilist. Like the world will go on when you die, things like that. So it's better to live a life not being a coward, and just saying what's on your mind, what you really think, standing for something, and trying to do good throughout the world and leave some sort of mark, as opposed to just going through the motions and being a anonymous bot on Twitter, just making fun of people who are actually trying to do things productive and constructive. So that's kind of like, my rationale and justification.
It's kind of funny going off of that. So I was watching this podcast. Do you know what the number one negative emotion that people experience is?
Anxiety.
Penny, do you have a guess?
Fear?
Kind of. So the number one negative emotion that most people experience is regret.
Ooh,
right?
Interesting.
So kind of going back to starting the podcast, I said to Jimmy, I was like, what's worse, starting it and having catastrophic consequences, or never starting it and wish that we would have?
Yeah.
So I try to live my life in a way of trying things, and if it doesn't work out, I don't do it.
Yeah.
But at least I don't regret not trying.
Totally. Like the NFTs. The worst thing that can happen is nobody buys one. Is that a pain I can deal with? Yes. If I can deal with that pain, then like it's worth. And also to that point, you're looking at my NFTs right now. Like I had to, as an artist, get over the fear of people saying to me, your art looks like a child drew it. And I was like, that's the worst thing that someone can say to me. Am I okay with that? And then I thought about it for a long time and I was like, yeah, I am okay with it. And so now if somebody says to me, this looks like a child drew it, I've already made that with myself. I know that's okay. And at least I'm out there doing it. Like, you're not, And like here I've gotten all these incredible benefits from my art and connections, and I have collectors and things are selling on the secondary market. I've made a career because I was able to get over the fear of somebody saying, this looks like a child drew it. And
I think that's huge
and
to
then
get over.
I put out the
really
NFTs, and people made fun of my NFTs. They were like, "Oh, this looks hard to make," and I was like, "Oh, like there's like people all over the United States with things just like that hanging on their wall. So try another way to hurt me, because that like you can't. Yeah.
I mean, some of the most popular NFTs are CryptoPunks. It looks like 3 pixels. You know what I mean? So, and they sell for $100,000.
Yeah.
So, and no one's hating on them now.
Totally.
You know, like kind of going back to the podcast start, and it's not to like get like into like too many like religious components, but like, so I went to Catholic high school growing up, and like one of the teachings that we like learned was the idea of, like, you know, that Jesus is like from Bethlehem, but he had to like go to Nazareth or whatever to like start preaching, because no one would like, I guess, respect him where he grew up, because they saw him and they'd be like, oh, like, yeah, we know who you are, like, what are you doing, preaching all this stuff. I think that's the kind of same thing with the podcast, where it's almost like your friends could potentially be your biggest haters because they know you. They're like, oh, you don't know shit about crypto or stocks. So you kind of have to like put out this image of being someone who does know it to these people on the internet that you don't know, and they could actually believe you and start buying into what you're trying to say, where it's much harder to convince someone who already knows who you are to.
I don't have a single close friend that listens to my podcast. They don't give two shits what I have to say about it. Yeah. So,
I think any of ours listen to it, but they know
the same. I mean, it's kind of like the fake it till you make it, but I feel like I try not to fake it, at least. I mean, and I feel like you do as well, as you try to be transparent. Yeah. Like, you know, like today sucked. You know, how was your day? How'd you do trading? And I think more people will relate to you by being transparent than they will by, I mean, how many Twitter accounts do you see like, oh, I made $30,000 today, like, and you're like, you know, they didn't make that. Like, it's clearly a screenshot of a fake account.
Totally.
Like, I'd rather see, how did you make that? You know what I mean? And how do you build up those habits to make money consistently? So,
you know, the only thing that we as people really, really, really have is our own story and like our own truth. And if you want to go out there and be different and make a mark on the world, the only way to do that is by being exactly who you are. If you're not who you are, people just think full of shit. And like, you know, and I've done that with art, and I do that so much with the podcast. Like, if I'm out there trying to pretend like I know what an IV crush is, people will be like, no, you don't. I'll be like, fair. Yeah, I have no idea. But I think that's so, I think being genuine and honest is so important in this whole thing. Yeah. And you guys, when I came on your show, I felt that like immediately. Really respect that about you guys.
Well, thank you. I mean,
no, thanks. I mean, it's definitely, I think it's how we try to be, right, Luke? Like, I got nothing to hide. I know Luke doesn't. We just are transparent. We want people to come along this journey and see what we do and, you know, how we develop it. Hopefully they can learn something along the way.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a hard balance though, because you want your audience to kind of look up to you in a way as someone that they can model themselves after, and you know, you don't want to be a complete idiot, right? You don't want to just be like talking about whatever. And I think some of Jimmy and I's early podcasts were a little too much like just shooting the shit, you know? And then I realized, like, okay, we got to be a little bit more serious to gain a following. And then we started being a little more serious doing technical stuff. And then people started actually watching. So I think it's kind of what part of your personality do people actually want to see, and then just do more of that.
So interesting.
Doesn't mean you have to be fake, but just focus on the one thing that people actually enjoy.
So
watching.
Interesting, since I said that I'm tacking back toward just shooting the shit and less technicals.
No, I mean, I enjoy watching that more personally. So
it's
I'm sure other people do.
Yeah.
Too.
So it's interesting.
So Penny, not to hijack your interview, but I have a question for you. I was dying to know the answer. So right now, I feel like we're starting to see the rise of like genuine social media competitors, like the current paradigm. We've got True Social coming out soon. I feel like Rumble is getting more of a following. Like it's sort of like taking market share from YouTube. do you see yourself like going onto the other platforms and trying to promote there? I mean, Twitter and YouTube are pretty stacked in regards to, who's already there. I've been like talking about this with Luke. Just I think you could be potentially easier to make a mark on these new platforms early on and try to like grow there.
I don't have any plans right now to move. I have a big following on Instagram, and it took me a long time to build that following. And I thought that it would be fairly easily to transfer that over to Twitter.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
There's no overlap. And then I thought that once people got to know me and like listened to the podcast and knew that I was an artist, it would be easy to get Twitter people to follow me on Instagram. No.
Yeah.
So do I have it in me at 38 years old to go, like I just put in blood, sweat, and tears to get this Twitter following, and I have 5,000 people, which is like such a drop in the bucket to what I have on Instagram, but I fought so hard to get these 5,000 people. I don't think I want to start over again.
Yeah, I think the way I think of it is you can use one platform to complement another, but then you add so much more work, right? Like, I mean, if you look at TikTok, for example, right? Like there's like Dixie D'Amelio. I think she has like tens of millions of followers, but her YouTube only has like 1 million, right? So it's like a very small percentage of those TikTok followers are actually going to the platform that you want to grow. So it's kind of like, is it worth the amount of work? And I think for me and Jimmy, it's, we both, work full time and everything. So it's no, yeah.
Full-time DoorDash,
but it's very hard, to come home from work and like, well, for me, it's like, I used to tweet all the time when the market was good, right? Because I was in a good mood, so I'd be tweeting. Now it's like, I'll tweet like once or twice a day.
Yeah.
But if you're consistent, you gain that base and it grows. And being consistent on multiple platforms is just, like you said, Penny, it's so much more work that it's almost not even worth it. Like it took so much time to grow your Instagram, and none of that is actually transferred over to your Twitter or your YouTube.
And so. I can't do it all. So my Instagram has suffered significantly. It's just stalled. And like my art career has like cooled down so much because I put so much of my energy and like passion into doing this. So can't do it all. What's the thing you can be master? Wait, something of many things, master of one, something like that.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, jack of all trades,
master of none.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think it's easier to focus on like 2 things or 3 things and just become really good at it than just trying to do everything.
Totally. And isn't that true about trading? Since we're you guys want to talk about trading for just a second? I mean, isn't that true? Yeah, I mean, I said
it's 100% true.
When I first started trading, I use this analogy on the podcast, so if you've heard it, forgive me. But beginning trading is like going into a buffet in Vegas, and you're just like, there's everything I want here. There's barbecue, there's seafood, there's vegetables, there's a salad bar, there's 14 kinds of desserts. Like, let me try all the things. And then you start to get like a little sick or a little ill. And then it's like an elimination diet of like, well, that barbecue, I've had enough of that, or I've had enough of that seafood. And then maybe probably in the end, hone it back down to like, I really am like a protein and a salad or a protein and a vegetable girl. So like eventually I think I would naturally go back to just focusing on that despite having all the options. And I feel like that's where I am in the market of like everything. And then I was like, I can't, and now it's just pulling it back to like the exact thing that I like, which is buying puts off of EMAs. That is what I like to do. And that is...
Yeah, Jimmy can talk about his trading journey. I'll be right back. I gotta do something real quick, but I'll be like 2 seconds. So, sorry.
All right.
Bye, Luke.
See you, Luke. Talk to you later. Yeah, no, I totally relate to that. I think that, first of all, I think when people first get into trading, this is how I start off. You just look at buying and selling a stock. And you don't actually know the potential options, pun intended, there are for you out there. You don't learn about the concept of shorting or buying puts or buying call options or using margin and leveraging yourself. Like, for a person who gets into it, yes, I think the buffet is like the perfect analogy, but I feel like it's almost like a buffet that gets more options as you walk down the hallway. If that makes sense. That's how it started for me, at least. You know, like, I was just buying stocks and then selling them after they went up. Then you learn, like, oh, there's a thing called options where you could buy the rights to purchase the stock at a higher price or a lower price in the future at a later date. And then, like, you realize that can amplify your gains. So yeah, like, I think that I've sort of gotten back to my bread and butter, which I think is OTC trading. I like it a lot because options expire, and I feel like things can go sour very quickly if you are not looking at the screen, especially nowadays where Joe Biden can make a screen like, all right, we're going to Russia. You're about to see.
Or if you're in puts.
Red. 0.
So, yeah, I mean, exactly. It goes either way, but regardless,
immediately,
a dramatic move can happen in a matter of minutes. So I think that requires constant attention if you're trading options. Like, it was better when I was working because I was working from home. I had my computer. Never, always had the ability to access my brokerage account and see what's going on.
Sure.
Now I'm full-time
Congratulations.
DoorDash driver. I'm on the road. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be for sure. But it's harder to trade options simply because of the fact that there is the ability that they could expire worthless, and you have to be aware of the price movements much more intently. Whereas OTC, I like because you can buy a stock, it won't expire. You could put in a stop loss if you're not confident in it, or you can put in like your sell order ahead of time and just wait it out. And eventually, like, I've had orders still like recently of stocks that I bought. I'm like, oh shit, I completely forgot about this, and it just sold. So you finally hit my sell order. So I OTC is my bread and butter. I do think though that big boards present a great opportunity right now, especially on these beaten up tech stocks. Down like 80%. Like, the valuations are actually not unreasonable now. The PEs aren't crazy. All the value investors are, pissed off at 2021 being like, or 2020 saying like, everything's overvalued, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, they're right now. But now I think it's, I would say more properly valued in the small cap world. So that presents nice opportunities for people to get in. And that I don't even call a trade. That's more like I'll buy it and just hold it and see what happens. But options I've not gotten back into. I think I will maybe once I have more stability in my own life and can handle the, just looking at the screen and just watching the thing bounce up and down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of going off of that, I know we talked about this when we interviewed before, but like when I first started trading, I started trading because of Jimmy, right? So Jimmy was always really into trading, Wharton guy, into business school, into economics and all that stuff. So when he moved in with me, and I think around 2020, I opened up my brokerage account. I started trading. And then in, December, January, February, 2021, 2020, that's when the OTC really started taking off. So I started investing, and Jimmy and I both started making, these really large gains. So I think I have this inherent connection to the OTC because that's where I made most of my money originally. Yeah. But now we look, year and a half later, I realize that, the markets are very fluctuating. So then I went into
way to put it generously.
Volatile. So then I went into crypto because crypto was hot, and then I felt like I was just always chasing things, like I was chasing the crypto run. sold before it really popped off. Then I was, chasing the NFT run, should have gotten to it earlier. And then I realized I just need to be more patient and wait for the things that I'm good at to actually perform well. And it's the old notion, right? If you hold a stock long enough, it's always going to go up. But it's so true. But for me, it's always been, I mean, I'm fairly diversified, at least compared to Jimmy. Like I do real estate, like Roth IRA, ETFs, and then I have probably only 10 to 15% of my portfolio is actually in individual stocks. So I feel more comfortable. Like I made this tweet one time. I was like, the only way you can make money is by taking risk. And then people are like, that's why, you lose all your money is because people like you are tweeting to buy penny stocks. And I was like, yeah, but that's because in my situation, I'm taking 15% of my portfolio and being extremely, extremely high risk.
Yeah.
So I'll never tell anyone what to buy, but this is what I'm doing. And I think, Penny, you said that before, is that you never tell people, you don't even tweet what you're buying, I don't think, right?
Never.
Whereas I used to tweet what I was buying, so then people would give me shit for saying, why are you investing in these extremely high-risk stocks? But it's because I have my own reasons, because that's my portion of my portfolio. So that's kind of where I am now. But it's definitely a journey. I'm still learning, and Jimmy and I are just trying to share that with our guests as you are with yours. So,
well, guys, on that note, I think it's a nice place to end it, but I hate to end it. I could hang out with you guys all the time. Yeah.
Well,
I know. We're
having a blast.
We're having a nice just hang, which I love.
It really is great. Like talking to other podcasts.
What are we going to do next? You guys, you want me to come back on your show? You want to come back on my? We need our next date.
Whatever you like.
I know. Yeah.
We'll make something work. I'm impressed. You scheduled us out like 3 weeks in advance.
I'm on a month out schedule now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jimmy and I are on the 2-day schedule.
Yeah. No, it's all scheduled a month out, but then our episodes are coming out like a month later. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of people that want to come on the podcast, which is a great problem to have. So
yeah.
That's a great problem.
Sure,
Send to those people are with you have issues.
I have some guests to recommend you. Some really great guests. And I haven't recommended them yet because I don't want to step on your toes, but when you get a good guest, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring, Penny.
Penny, have you interviewed tactical trading penny stocks yet? John Spana, he was really good. I think he'd be a good guest. He would definitely come on your show.
Cool.
Too.
Send him in our group text.
Yeah, we'll shoot you some DMs.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Hi, guys. I have some great news for you. We have a new discount code for Last Bottle Wines. So if you've already used the product, sampled their delicious wines, know how amazing their prices are and their customer service, and you would like to place a new order with 10% off, you can use the code PENNY10 from now until May 1st. That's PENNY 10, the numbers. Anyway, you know how much we love Last Bottle Wines, and we're so happy to be partnered with them. Use the code, support the pod. We love you guys. Thank you so much to our producer Joel Edwards and Chesley Lowe for the banjo music.
By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the Penny Lane podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional or financial advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, the Penny Lane podcast does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. The third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of the Penny Lane podcast. The Penny Lane podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with applicable laws of such materials and or links referenced herein.